Alright, our first step is setting up the public site, which is going to be an anonymous site. So I'm going to do it on this 06 machine. So in my environment, I have a machine which is 11, which is all configured already, but I have a brand new machine which is 06 that we're going to go and set everything up on. So let's have a look at our 06 machine. So we'll jump across there. So I'm in SharePoint. So this is SharePoint, all the prerequisites installed, but you'll see I've got no web applications at this stage. So the first thing we need to do is create a Windows authentication anonymous site. So if I jump across to my 11 machine where it's all configured, you'll see that I've got a SharePoint 80 site. If I have a look at the authentication providers here, that this is Windows, and if I have a look at the details behind that, enable anonymous is turned on. So I can't create this from the UI in SharePoint. I have to create it from a script, and you see that this is different to my private site, which is under my HTTPS. This is claim based. By default, when you create a site in SharePoint from the UI, it's going to create claim based, but we need a private site to do anonymous access so that we can authenticate the users and get their login details initially, or allow them to sign up if it's the first time they're accessing. So let's go across to our 06 machine and go and have a look at how we configure this. Now I've got to do it from a command prompt, so I'm going to do it from my SharePoint management shell. So I'm going to find the management shell and I'm going to run as administrator. So this is our SharePoint management shell, but what do we put into the management shell? Well, it's a command line, and I've got this ready in a file here. So we're going to run a command which is sp web application new. I'm going to give it a name, in this case SharePoint 80. The application pool is going to be SharePoint 80. Now that's just convenience because I'm going to put this on the port 80. Now the important parameter is allow anonymous access, and I'm going to use my service account for this domain, and the port number is going to be 80, and the URL is just going to be HTTP and this particular machine name in this case, which is my 06 machine, so R3 MAVM6 in this case. So I'm going to copy that command, and we're going to go across to our SharePoint shell and we're going to paste this in. And so it's easy if you have a text file and you put your commands in there, because you can just copy and paste them when you're ready to run it. So let's hit enter, and so this command's going to go and run. I'm just going to pause the video because it might take a little while for it to run, maybe a minute or two. Okay, so if all is okay, then our site would have been created and we shouldn't get any errors here. So it's important to sort of make sure that there's no red. If there's red, then there's an error in the creation. So you want to just resolve whatever errors you get there. Now if we go across to our SharePoint Central Admin, if I hit refresh now, alright, we can see we've got our site created. Now there's no content on the site yet, we've got to go and create content, but if I look at the authentication providers, it's Windows and allow anonymous is turned on. So this is the first part of it. Now if I also look at my IIS manager, if we do a refresh in there of our sites, then I'm going to have a SharePoint 80 here, which is going to be our anonymous site. So we're going to come here and configure a few different parameters as well for this site. So that's the site configured. Now there's no content, so I've got my AX 2012 R3 product CD here, and I'm going to go and run the setup to install Enterprise Portal. Alright, so just before I do that, let's jump across. I'm going to go and have a look at the AX client here. So I'm in System Admin, and then I'm going to come down to my websites under Setup. So at this stage I have sites in here for my other machine that I've got configured, but what we want to do is go and run the setup and create new sites, and it'll register a site in here for us. So we're going to go back to our 06 machine, I'm going to go to the product CD and just run autoplay, and we'll run setup. And so we're going to go add components. Say next, accept the license terms. We'll let it run. I'll just pause the video while it checks. So it's okay. Add modify components. That's what we want to do. I want to install the enterprise portal. We'll say OK to this message. We'll say next, and we'll let it run and do its checks. So all the prerequisites should be installed. If this is a brand new, this is the first time you've run setup, then you want to go and install all the prerequisites to make sure that everything's configured in the system. So I've already run this just to save a little bit of time to make sure all the prerequisites are done. So I'm going to pick next. Alright, we want to put in the password for our service account. Now at this point, this is where we want to configure the application. So in this case SharePoint 80, and we want to change the site. Now you could call it anything else. I'm just going to call it public for the sake of the exercise, but I mean what you call it is really up to your own self. So SharePoint 80 is the web application we're going to go and configure. So that was the one that we created. So I want to go and create and publish all the services to that site. So I'm just going to call it public. So I'm going to go and hit next, and the prerequisites going to go and run, so that should all be okay again, and I'm going to go and hit next, and so we're ready to install. So I'm going to hit install. This could take quite a couple of minutes, maybe 3 to 4 minutes to actually run. So I'm going to pause the video while it runs, and we'll have a look after it runs. Okay, so the CD install ran successfully. We don't want to have a look at the summary, and so we'll just hit finish there. Now if we go across to the AX client in our other machine, if I come to my websites, at this point we'll see that we have a new website actually configured there. And so this means that if I go and view in browser, then I should be able to access that site, and so it comes up. So you want to do that test first before you go and turn off. Now in this particular case we're using Windows authentication to access it, so I'm logging on as administrator, so I've got access to all the functionality, and so that's what we want to lock down later with the guest account setup and configuration. But we know at this stage that the portal's up and running, and we've done that part of the configuration. We can have a look. If we switch back to our 06 machine where we've got SharePoint, we can see that the SharePoint site is there. If I go into application management, then we can go and have a look at the site collection. So we'll view all site collections. So we'll see on this machine, then I have a site which is public, and that's what the site collection is that got created by the AX product CD. So that's our first test. Our public site is created. Now we need to go and do a bunch of configuration on that, and we'll follow that up in another video.